Good afternoon. Hello, good afternoon. Can you hear me? Okay, malakas ba? Masyadong malakas? Sakto lang, okay. Thank you. I'll stand up here first kasi yun daw yung cue. Saka na ako bababa. And also, I will speak English today. Expect nyo na yan. Kasi may mga American. And, uh, and I did my talk with being for an international audience in mind. So I will try my best. But good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for giving me space today to talk about something that sits at the center of my work and my life, which is freedom. Okay, so when people hear the word, they often think about choices, travel, money, or the dream of doing whatever you want. But that kind of freedom I want to share today is quieter, deeper, and harder to earn. It is the freedom to define who you are, the freedom to rise beyond the labels placed on you, the freedom to say, this is who I choose to be, even when the world expects less. Labels. I will talk about this here throughout today, and these are not the kind you use when asked about your relationship. Minsan, di ba, tinatanong tayo, are you in a relationship? Usually, ang sagot, it's complicated, no labels. I'm not gonna talk about that kind of label. As a child, I did not grow up with much. Many of you might know what that means. So mahirap lang kami. When you come from a place where every peso matters, you learn early on that opportunity is not something handed to you. You chase it. You work for it. You fight for space in rooms that were not designed with you in mind. As a child, being underprivileged was not just a situation. It became a label. Nakalagay sa noo ko. People made assumptions. They saw limits instead of potential. They predicted outcomes that were actually more of judgments. Some said, people like me would never make it. Some said, I would struggle forever. And even if no one said it out loud, the message was clear. You are not enough. You are not enough. Taas ang kamay dito nang narinig na nila yan sa ibang tao or narinig nila sa sarili nila yan. You are not enough. Labels like those can cling to you. They can shape the way you think, the way you walk, the way you speak, and the way you are in relationships, the way you are at work or in school. And if you're not careful, they can even become your story. But here is the truth. A label only has power if you accept it and if you let it define you. When I was young, I made a decision that changed everything. I told myself that I would not let those words define me. I wanted a better life. And I knew education was my only salvation. My father died when I was 8, and he left us nothing but our names. But before he passed, he has always wanted and dreamt for me to go and get into the Ateneo. So that's what I couldn't, that's what I did. I aimed for a scholarship at the Ateneo de Manila University because I knew we definitely couldn't afford it. It felt impossible at that time. I remember looking at the campus and thinking, people like me don't belong here. I saw other students there wore brands I only dreamt of wearing. Nike Air, usong-uso pa po noon ang Nike Air. At bagong uso pa lang ang Nike Air noong mga panahon na yan. Polo Ralph Lauren, Gap, Cole Haan, and other brands I don't even know how to pronounce. While ako po, I just had one pair of rubber shoes and one pair of leather shoes na galing pa sa SM department store. And hindi yan papalitan ng mga magulang ko or ng mami ko because it was only my mom who was alive at that time. Hindi yan papalitan hanggat hindi siya sirang-sira. Yung tipong kaya pang gawin ni Mr. Quickie, gagawin ni Mr. Quickie yan. So give or take around one pair of rubber shoes and one pair of leather shoes in give or take maybe 2 years. But beneath being underprivileged, there was something much stronger inside. A hunger for change. A belief that I could rewrite the story that was written for me. That belief turned into action, and action turned into resilience. And that resilience pushed me forward every single day until that scholarship was no longer a dream, but a reality. And this started the trajectory of my life. It was one of the first moments in my life when I learned what freedom what freedom really looked like. It was not about escaping hardship. It was about recognizing that my identity was not tied to where I came from. It was tied to who I choose to become. From that kid who almost had nothing, who studied under candlelight dahil wala kaming ilaw at electricity, who barely had 2 meals in a day, maswerte na po yung makadalawang meals ako. I actually now own and manage 3 companies that are thriving. I'm a marketing consultant to a number of brands. I'm a certified personal branding executive coach, coaching executives, leaders, celebrities, and politicians. And I'm a proud donor to 10 scholars every year. Today, as a personal branding coach, I talk a lot about stories. And that's why we are all here today, to hear stories. Not the polished version we post online, but the messy, honest story underneath. I meet people who still carry labels from childhood. Ang dami niyan. Ang dami kong kliyenteng ganyan. From past failures, from the opinions of others, and sometimes from their own inner critic. Labels like not good enough, too late, too ordinary, not ready, or ang pinakamasakit, most likely not to succeed. I know those labels well. I wore them once. And I know how heavy they feel. You might be surprised if I told you that I had extreme stage fright back in high school. And to add more to that, people made fun of me because my face, my neck, nose, and shoulder would always make funny contortions when I speak. If you don't notice it, I actually have Tourette's. I certainly am not the type who should be in front of you now speaking about personal branding and imaging if it were up to the labels on my forehead back then. But I am here. Because I also know this, identity is not a prison. It is a choice. You can decide what you stand for. You can decide what to be known for, what to carry forward, and what to build next. My own journey taught me that clarity about who you are is the strongest anchor you can have. It keeps you steady. It reminds you of your values when life gets loud. It gives you direction when everything around you feels uncertain. But clarity is not something you magically wake up with. It is something you uncover bit by bit. It grows through experiences, mistakes, failures, and quiet moments when life forces you to face yourself. Looking back, I realized that my drive to succeed came from a place far deeper than ambition. It came from understanding that my life had meaning, even before I could fully articulate it. It came from a belief that I could create value for others, even if I was still figuring myself out. To be honest, pinalakpakan niyo ako kanina, pero para sa akin, I'm still a work in progress. And we will always be a work in progress all the time. This is something I share with my clients today. Your personal brand is not an image. It is not about trying to look perfect or sound impressive. It is a reflection of of your truth. It is the story you choose to honor. It is the contribution you want to make. And that contribution grows out of purpose. Purpose is not a lightning bolt. It is a path. Sometimes it is clear, sometimes it is confusing. Oftentimes it is revealed through struggles. In my case, growing up underprivileged developed in me resilience, discipline, and a deep sense of empathy. So looking back, what seemed to be weaknesses were actually strengths. They shaped how I show up today. They shape why I do this work. I believe life is a long process of discovery. You discover what matters to you. You discover what you can offer. You discover that the world is bigger than your fears. And you discover that your story, no matter how difficult, can become a source of strength for someone else. So when I talk about freedom, I'm not talking about freedom from your past. I'm talking about taking ownership of it, understanding it, learning from it, then shaping it into something that empowers you and others. As you think about your own story, ask yourself a few questions. What labels have you carried? Who told you who you are, and did you agree without realizing it? What parts of your past can become sources of strength rather than shame? And most important, what do you want your life to stand for? What do you want your life to stand for? Your answer does not need to be perfect. It only needs to be honest. My life freedom begins the moment you give yourself permission to define your identity with intention. Not out of fear, not out of pressure, but out of clarity. My life changed when I chose to believe I was more than the expectations placed on me. Your life can change in the same way. Not overnight, but steadily over time. Thoughtfully and with purpose guiding each step. As I end my talk, I want to leave you with one simple truth. Your story is not fixed. Your identity is not fixed. You can rewrite, reshape, and reclaim it at any time. And that is the gift you give not only to yourself, but to everyone whose life you will touch. That is power. That is freedom. Thank you very much for listening and a very good afternoon to you all. Maraming salamat.
Thank you so much, Coach Jojo.